All right, what's cracking, everybody? So, I did that last video on the Purepecha, right? I talked about the Tepaneca and what had happened. Some of you really enjoyed it. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna read um, out of a book. One of my favorite books is called "Warlords of the Ancient Americas" by Peter G. Soras, Tsuras. Okay. And one of the greatest men in the history of our ancestry, his name was Tlacaelel. And they used to call, he became known as the Kingmaker. But anyways, I'm going to read some of this book. This is part of what had happened. I'm reading in the middle of a chapter. I thought about reading chapters out of this book to you guys, but I just really want to do this. And I'll tell you guys, like, if I was to have a son, if I was to be blessed to be able to have a son, I definitely would name him Tlacaelel. Don't know if my lady would allow me to have his first name as Tlacaelel, but it would definitely be his middle name, if nothing else. So let me read this. Remember, I'm rusty with the language, so forgive me if I say things I mispronounce, but let me get to this, and you get to meet Tlacaelel, and I'm sure you'll be proud. Here we go. That imperial diadem now rested uneasily on the head of Tesosomoc's successor in Azcapotzalco. Masla's murder of his father's chosen heir had unsettled the legitimacy of succession in the eyes of his many brothers, each of whom now felt he had an equally good claim to the crown. He had unsettled the Tepanec heartland and now threatened the harmony of Tesosomoc's empire. He had also discredited his claim, so hungrily pursued by his father, to the ancient Toltec legitimacy. The Tepanec Empire was becoming dangerously unstable. It was a moment ripe with opportunity for Itzcoatl, who was ready to cast off the vassalage of his people. Masla was enraged to find that the pliant Chimalpopoca had been replaced by someone as obdurate as his name, Obsidian Serpent, Itzcoatl. He immediately blockaded the causeways to Tenochtitlan, cutting off its food supply. Mexica public opinion trembled at the display of Tepanec wrath. Itzcoatl may have been king, but it was a greatly circumscribed kingship that he held. He depended mostly on the numerous royal kin, the nobility, and the warrior class, all of whom had a vested interest in freeing themselves of Tepanec control. Unfortunately, they held relatively little economic power. Tenochtitlan was a poor island city whose wealth, other than its warriors, was in the intensively cultivated floating gardens controlled by the city clan-based wards. The king controlled relatively little wealth, especially compared to richer cities, and had few means to reward those who excelled in war and government. He was therefore not blind to the implications of the city's loss of nerve. Most of the common people and many of the nobility wanted nothing more than to placate Masla by carrying the image of their patron god, Huitzilopochtli, to Azcapotzalco. In a frightened panic, they rushed to the temple and loaded the idol upon their shoulders. Tlacaelel stormed up to them and shouted, "What is this? What are you doing? You have lost your wits. Wait, sit still. Let us consider this matter more fully. Are you such cowards that you feel you must take shelter in Azcapotzalco?" He turned to Itzcoatl and said, "Great Lord, what is this? How can you permit such a thing? Speak to your people. Seek a way to defend our honor." The young warrior priest had temporarily halted them with the force of his personality, but it was only temporary. The silent tension balanced on the thinness of an obsidian flake. One breath could tip it either way. Then Itzcoatl spoke. The tone of certainty swept across thousands of upturned faces. "Are you desirous of going to Azcapotzalco? This seems to me a slavish act. We must move with pride. Which of you will appear before the king of Azcapotzalco to hear his decision? The messenger will surely be killed. But if you insist, whoever wishes to do this, let him rise and go. No one came forward. He had fixed the crowd to the pavement. They had seen their abasement as a form of safety. Itzcoatl had painted it over as certain death. Suddenly, no one wanted to be the first to die, except for one, Tlacaelel, whose clear, strong voice rolled across the square. I offer myself to carry the message, since I do not fear death. I well know that I must die someday, and it matters little whether it be today or tomorrow. How could I have a better death than by defending the honor of my homeland? Therefore, O Lord, I will go. Itzcoatl gravely assented. I am gratified, dear nephew, by the bravery and courage of your decision. If you undertake this task, I will reward you with great liberality. And if you die in this mission, your children will receive my favor. You will be remembered eternally for this brave act. Then he commanded him to go. The crowds parted in silence for this bold young man, marching to a death sentence. There was no code of immunity for ambassadors. He was a sight as hard as death, dressed in tight-fitting black, his face painted black, and his hair smeared to a hard, snaky crust with dried human blood sacrifice. What the crowd did not realize was that Itzcoatl had thrown for great stakes. Tlacaelel did not carry a message of self-abnegating peace, but of war. Rarely has history seen a bolder and more daring young soldier. He wore audacity like a shield, striding up to the Tepanec guards at the gates of Azcapotzalco, who had strict orders to kill all Mexica on sight. He bullied his way past them. I well know what you have been commanded, but it is also well known, that messengers are not to be blamed, and I am an envoy to your king from the sovereign of Mexico and his chieftains, and so I beg you to allow me to pass. I assure you that I will return by the same way. If you then wish to slay me, I will put myself in your hands. The guards waved him in. He strode straight into Masla's palace and presented himself. Masla took a moment to overcome his surprise that the young man had eluded death at the city gates. Then Tlacaelel presented his message. The Mexica asked for peace. Obviously caught off guard, Masla temporized by saying he must consult his council. Return the next day for my answer, he commanded. The young Mexica asked for a safe conduct, but Masla, all too used to toying with the Mexica, replied that his own cunning must serve. So Tlacaelel left by the way he had come and again talked his way through the guards. My brothers, I have just spoken to your sovereign, and I carry an answer to mine. If you will allow me to pass, I will be grateful. I have come to talk of peace, and I deceive no one. I must return to Mexico to settle this matter. Whether you kill today or the next day matters little, since I give you my word that I will place myself in your hands tomorrow. Itzcoatl heard him out. Masla must be pushed over the edge. Ask him if his people are determined to leave us in peace and admit us again to their friendship. If he answers that there is no remedy, that he must annihilate us, then take this pitch with which we anoint our dead and smear it on his body. Feather his head as we do to our dead, and give him the shield, sword, and gilded arrows, which are the insignia of the sovereign, adding that he must be on his guard, since we will do everything to destroy him. The next day, when Tlacaelel strode through the gates of Azcapotzalco, the guards stood aside in respect. Tlacaelel demanded an answer of war or peace from Masla. Even now, though he had an abiding hatred of the Mexica, Masla attempted to push the blame for war onto his council and lords. Tlacaelel brushed aside the excuses. Very well, O Lord. Your vassal, the king of Mexico, sends you this message. Take care. Be strong. Prepare yourself. At this moment, he challenges you and your people. He is now your mortal enemy, and either you or we will be slain upon the field or become a slave forever. You will deeply regret having begun a thing which you cannot conclude in victory. Then in silence he approached Mastla and smeared his face with pitch and presented him with the shield, sword, and gilded arrows. The declarations of war had been exchanged. Tlacaelel fully expected to die. Mastla was a violent man who had murdered kings with little thought, but he stood and asked Tlacaelel to thank Itzcoatl for his message. Then, in open admiration for the Mexica's courage, he said, "Son Tlacaelel, do not go out by the main gate, because there they await to kill you. I have ordered a hole made in the back of the house through which you may escape. However, I do not wish you to leave without a gift, since you are a friend and a brave man. Take these weapons, this shield and sword, and defend yourself with them if you are attacked." With this salute from his enemy, Tlacaelel slipped out through the hole in the wall and found a path out of the city. Then, turning on the guards, he shouted, "O Tepanex of Azcapotzalco, how poorly you carry out your task of defending the city. Prepare yourselves. Soon there will not be a Tepanec left in the world. Not one stone will be left upon another. No one will be spared. Prepare yourselves to perish in fire and blood. Itzcoatl, king of Mexico, has challenged you." The bewildered guards came after him, but he attacked them boldly. The dark green obsidian-edged sword flashed in his hand as he killed one Tepanec after another, and only withdrew when reinforcements arrived. So there's a lot more to read, and hopefully you guys found some interest in that. You can search Tlacaelel's name. That man was a beast. He was behind so much that our ancestors did and what they accomplished, and he was a bad dude, man. One of the greatest generals in the history of mankind. And so I encourage you guys to go ahead and if you're interested in your history, search him up, Google him, find books. I could give you the names of certain books. A lot of times people ask me, "Hey, can you recommend a book?" And I remember when I was in the shoe, and I had a Sally who was fluent in the Mexica language, in Nahuatl, right? And he used to study constantly. And he could, like I said, he was fluent. And I said, "Hey, why don't you teach me how to talk?" And he said, "You know how many years it took me to do this?" He said, "If you want to learn, you're going to take as many years as I did." And so, I could give you guys all the books. I can give you a book here and there. But I feel like if it's in your heart to learn about your history and take pride in your history, when I tell you Tlacaelel's name, you'll look him up. You'll Google him. You'll find a bibliography of books that'll speak about him. And I guarantee you that you'll be impressed by this individual. If you guys want me to continue reading this, let me know, and I can try to do that for you guys. But with that, I'm out.